Bitstorm, a comedy game design podcast by two guys who know nothing about comedy nor game design. I'm Ben Slinger, and with me, as always, is Trevor Scott.
Hello.
Good evening, Trevor. And in this Daft Punk memorial episode, we will be doing purely robot... No, I'm just kidding. We are going to use what three words again?
Mm-hmm.
Trev, do you want to tell everybody what three words?
What three words is? Yes. What three words is an application where the developers or someone very smart has divided the entire world into 3-meter chunks and then assigned each one of those 3-meter chunks a different set of 3 random words. So we thought it'd be good to grab those 3 random words and use them in our usual sort of game design idea.
In our usual fashion, as we have been known to do on a weekly basis for 4+ years. Yeah, that's exactly it. So we're going to take those random words, we're going to turn them into game designs, and you're going to listen and hopefully laugh, enjoy, lament the fact that they do not exist.
Mm-hmm.
So Trev, do you want to go first?
I can go first.
Drop me your words.
So I'm going to preface this with these words remind me of a certain game that we've talked about before, but not on the podcast. So we might be able to go there. So the 3 words are puzzle, refuses, crystal.
Puzzle refuses crystal. Are you referring to the very first game that you and I ever
discussed
pitched together?
We pitched it while sitting at your place. We talked for about 4 hours on this, and then decided to start up a parenting podcast 6 months later.
Yeah,
rather than the game design podcast that we could have been known for.
We did get here in a roundabout way. Okay. Well, let's take what we remember from that and obviously the experience we've had since then of riffing on these ideas. Yeah.
So the initial idea that I came up with back then was that someone at the very start of the game basically gets trapped in a cave. All they've got is a lighter, and they hear from outside, "Oh, just hang there, we'll fetch help." And of course, you being the typical gamer, you turn around and start walking into the cave.
Yeah, because you're a game protagonist. You're not just going to stand around. Jeez.
No. What sort of game would that be? I'm imagining that it's kind of like nowadays you do that whole thing of if you wait for 20 minutes, just like in some of the Far Cry games, that help does arrive and they save you
and you get an ending,
and you get an ending,
but you miss out on the rest of the game.
Yeah. So the idea was that this whole place was basically going to be filled with these magical sort of crystals that gave you different energy powers, like fire and water and some electricity sort of stuff, and we'd basically sort of build up the puzzleness from it.
Yeah, it definitely had a sort of Portal puzzle type game feel of building up and combining these mechanics as we went. It was, I believe, when we originally envisioned it, a first-person perspective.
Puzzle. Yep.
And so I think we had sort of that they would also just react to the different elements, and that's kind of how they'd start combining, right? That a certain crystal might grow when it comes into contact with fire or something like that.
Yeah, so basically you had a crystal there that provided the power, and then you had receiver crystals sort of thing. So that's how you sort of you knew that you had to sort of link the fire power to the fire receiver, and then the water power to the water receiver, and you couldn't cross them over and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah, so are you envisioning that it's just like an energy beam going between them, or is it more that if one crystal touches the other, there's some sort of reaction?
I'm now sort of seeing it with not necessarily an energy beam, but it's sort of like whatever the element is that it's sort of dealing with. Right. So in fire, it'll shoot out like a flamethrower sort of thing. So once you connect it up, you can maybe bounce it around a couple of times to try and get this flame to hit the receiver. But then you've got to then work out how you're going to get the water, jet. Are you going to arc it over the top and, try to hit the receiver that way, and then, you got to get electricity through there somehow, and
yeah. So will one type of crystal then have different effects depending on the energy that hits it? Like, is it that sort of thing where, the blue crystal, if I hit it with water, it's going to like grow in a direction, but if I hit it with fire, it's going to like it's going to launch something off, like it's going to launch out a projectile or something.
Yeah, I think you definitely have, your fire receiver, you've got your water receiver, and you can tell by the look of the sort of thing. Like, maybe a fire receiver would be, like a campfire sort of setup, and then the water receiver would be like a sink of some description. You can sort of see the drain in the bottom, and electricity receiver would be, some sort of radio tower looking thing that has like metal on top, and
like a Tesla coil or something.
Yeah,
cool.
I think the 3D perspective would give you a little bit more idea on what you could actually do. It's sort of like, I remember there being quite a few, laser directing games, but they're always in that 2D perspective. Having that same idea in a 3D perspective, kind of changes it up a bit, which also sort of brings it into some of the Portal 2 puzzles that you had the laser and all that sort of stuff. But by having it as different elements that actually can interact with each other, and, if electricity hits water, it spreads everywhere within the water and can short out the water for a little bit. Or, if water hits fire, it can actually, sort of stop the fire from actually making it to the receiver as such.
Right, yeah. So I could envision a situation...
But electricity heating fire wouldn't actually do that much, so that would be okay to sort of hit.
Yeah, I could envision a situation where you're sort of setting up these cascading effects where, you've got a flamethrower that's bursting out and you need that to power something, essentially, because the receiver's receiving it, but you need to get through like a second door, which only goes when it's not powered, and so then you have to have another crystal going that sets the water off, but that needs to essentially be on like a delay, or a sequence or something, and so that might be like where the electricity comes in, because there's a pendulum that that blocks that beam or something every 3 seconds, and then that's sort of the solution to your puzzle. Yeah, I like that. That's cool.
And, it's just sort of like you've got a few different ideas that you could have in there. You could even have like some, a magical crystal and receiver, and that, requires, some sort of ritual to be performed or something like that will set it off going for a little while. And it's sort of like, it's sort of like the last thing that you sort of want to do, because the ritual only lasts, 20 seconds or whatever.
Well, that could be a good way to have some sort of delay on what is essentially a circuit with these different, types. Yeah, I could imagine having some sort of visual indication of the power that's built up in this ritual crystal that starts to drain as soon as you stop, and then you need to go, and because once it's unpowered, it's going to close the door. That's whatever.
Yeah. Other one that I can think of straight away is like just literally a light or laser reflecting sort of one where you're actually, sending down the beam that has to hit like a mirror or something like that, or some sort of solar panel. So it's like an ancient like solar panel that.
Yeah, well, you could even because I'm now thinking that you could have these ritual crystals almost interact with, and I mean they would anyway if they're powering other crystals or whatever. But you could. You could have the timer one. You could have one that when you power it up, it inverts the signal sort of thing, or on a timer inverts / lets it through, or blocks or lets it through. Maybe it's like a rotating mirror or something, right? Because that could you could actually make some of these fairly tricky with needing to get the timings right and
Yeah, so you want the magical to be connected to receiver 1 so that it turns the mirror X number of degrees, but then it needs to stop after this by, interrupting it with some hitting it with water, and that sort of diffuses everything, and then you can...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, that's cool. I feel like you could go pretty deep. With those sort of puzzle games, it really helps to have just those basic building blocks that you can then, experiment those different puzzles with, I think.
So in our true form, typical Bitstorm form. In our true form, we like to have some narrative going behind it. So let's delve into the narrative. Why are these crystals here? And is this part of some ancient device or something like that?
Good question. Maybe they turn out to be living beings that you've been setting on fire and drowning.
I mean, what comes to mind straight away is this is sort of like ancient alien technology that is sort of, when you get right down to it, like these are sort of little remnants of the technology, and the further that you go in, the more difficult it gets, because effectively these are traps that the aliens have set. Basically, they've got a storage room of all this sort of stuff, and this is supposed to be logic puzzles to stop you from getting there.
Yeah, I do like that idea of, particularly with then the sort of more complex crystals that might have timers and triggers and negation and that sort of thing, being more advanced alien technology.
Yeah. And, it gives a reason as to why you want to explore this, because it may actually, answer some questions and ask more.
And then you get to the end, and it's just some nerdy billionaire who spent all this money making it look like it's aliens because he's an alien nerd. And he goes, "Yeah, you won the prize."
And he shoots you in the face.
Sure.
I got to make it harder next time.
All right. Okay. My 3 words from the very centre of Australia. I mean, I don't know if it's the literal centre, but in that approximate area, deep in the desert. Eyelashes, simulation, hens.
Okay, so is this a hens night simulator?
It could be. My mind was thinking, I just couldn't get past the image of hens with eyelashes.
So this is a hens night. So
it's actual animals.
It's actual.
They're on
animals.
the farm.
And so they've all put on, the fake eyelashes and makeup, and they're going out for a night on the town, all the chicks.
And they've, of course, because they have all of their cock-based paraphernalia.
Yes. You've got, the... What's
You've got
that?
your crest.
You got the crest. You've got whatever the thing is under the...
Is it a waddle? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, I think it's got a different name. Yep, you've got your party blower that does a cock-a-doodle-doo.
Yep.
But that one literally is shaped like a penis.
Yeah.
I don't know what a chicken penis looks like.
It's because they don't have one. They've got cloacas.
Well, but how does the...
Cloacas are weird, dude.
Cloacas just like dock together.
Never look into it. Never look into it.
All right, I won't Google cloacas. Is this perhaps, maybe this is because of simulation, is this like a cyberpunkish sort of world where it's actually humans, but they've gone into this simulation for the hens night where they look like actual hens?
Okay, so these chickens are going out on the town.
Yeah.
All the cock paraphernalia.
The cock paraphernalia and the cloaca paraphernalia. Yes, and so is this, I guess, is this like a narrative sort of thing where you're getting to know these hens and their different situations? You've got obviously the one who's about to get married to somebody. Is it about just moving from bar to bar and putting in a whole lot of animal puns? as we explore the relationships around that.
I'm kind of thinking like one of the bars is based on the Three Little Pigs.
Yeah. It's got like three different sections. Like the VIP area is all bricked, and your dance floor is made of sticks.
Yep.
And then you just all hang out on the hay at the bar. It's like hay bales.
Yep. Okay.
Cool.
Is the bartender a wolf in disguise?
Yeah, it's just a gimmick. Like he's a wolf wearing like sheep's clothing.
Yep.
But that's like he's a really nice guy.
Yeah. He's actually a sheep wearing wolf's clothing, wearing sheep's clothing. It's kind of a meta thing.
Yeah, they really go in with the meta stuff there. It's a bit obnoxious actually, but they've got good drinks.
Yeah. Oh, Ben, tell me about some of those drinks.
Well, you've got the Huff and Puff.
Oh, yep, fantastic drink.
Of course. You've got the Chinny Chin Chin.
Yep.
Which, you drop sort of a leaf of, it's got some sort of herbs that go into it. To be like the hair on the Chinny Chin Chin.
Oh, yeah. A hair of the dog that bit you sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, that ties into, of course.
Yep.
You've got the, you've of course got the bricklayer.
Oh, of course.
That, you don't drink too many of them.
You've got, logs on the beach for when you want to get away.
Yeah, that's got one of those like cinnamon sticks in it,
and of course, hay sucking cowboys. So,
yeah. So definitely check out the Three Little Pigs bar, and while you're there, like you find out that Jemima,
yep,
is having a hard time with her boyfriend, who
he's such a cock.
Actually, well, it's funny. He's actually a turkey.
Yeah.
And he
was just strike. Yep.
He was striking out like so many times, but now
he tried going for so many new jobs and kept on striking out 3 times. Yep.
All he wants to do is sit at home and gobble food, and we won't get off the couch. And then the bride to be, of course.
What's her name?
You know it.
Lucille?
You've seen Lucille, yeah.
You're talking about Lucille, yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking about Lucille. She's having second thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, Ricky, just... He, he's always down at that club and never wanting Lucy to go anywhere.
That's right. They got into this so fast. She was just struck by his strut and
his cock of the walk, as it were.
He is cock of the walk down at that club of his, and that's where you end up. Of course, that's the final bar that you get to.
Yeah, basically, he doesn't realize that you're going out for a girls' night, and he sees you turning up, and you look just amazing, and.
Yeah, I think there's a big romantic kind of thing at the end because the whole course, Lucille's been second guessing and wondering, and you sort of realize that Ricky's been spending this whole time, anxious as well, and they see each other, and you can tell.
You can tell, you can feel that love in there tonight.
They're going to make a great meal together. Just a real meal of a family. It's not even a good pun.
They're going to really spice it up.
They're going to spice it up at least 11 times. Definitely. And sometimes, Lucy might just give him a little nickname in bed, and she likes to call him the Colonel.
Yeah.
All right, Trevor, what are your 3 words?
Nothing oiled onto.
It's like song lyrics, something for some weird sexy song. Nothing oiled unto.
Yes. So I think oil, and I think oil paint. or I think oil on the road. You know, there's a whole heap of, you know, even the business of oil and how it's running out. So we can have a bit of
some sort of fossil fuel.
300 years in the future, and I
the
don't know.
last oil pump runs dry.
Well, I think the oil has been out for a long time, but it's sort of like these people come across sort of like this old like cave of some description, and they find these old automobiles that, you know, they can tell that they're automobiles because, you know, they've got wheels like they people remember. This is
there are no wheels.
Well, I'm picturing that this is all in a brand new green future, and they're sort of like they find these old busted up cars, and it's sort of like
I love the idea that green cars don't have wheels.
They fly everywhere. They're all maglev.
Right, so this like hover maglev technology.
Yeah.
Okay. So wheels have been forgotten.
Yeah. They're like, what? Oh, these must be wheels. That's what I remember hearing about.
All the rubbers like just decomposed away, and so they think that they just drove directly onto their rims.
And of course, because it's all maglev and basically steel is somewhat magnetic and therefore it levitates as well, you know.
They managed to get this working.
They managed to get it working, but they can't actually get it to move anywhere because it's just like spinning the wheels because there's nothing to gain traction.
So, is this a game about a group of teenagers joyriding in the future on this like ancient old vehicle? Or at least starting off that way?
At least starting off that way. But of course,
okay,
they're trying to find a fuel source that they can actually connect up with this thing, because they've only got X number of petrol left, and you know the engine's somewhat seized when they first get it, and they manage to get it moving with some vegetable oil, but it turns out that they actually need some real like fossil fuel oil.
Okay. So what's their purpose though for needing to get this running, I guess? Is it just because they want to fuck around with it, or is there some real reason?
I like the idea that it starts off that they just want to fuck around with it, but it sort of gets into a little bit more serious.
Well, I'm just thinking fossil fuels are presumably banned in some way, or they're obviously not used on any sort of large scale. Has the knowledge just been completely lost, or is this something that's still talked about, in the dark ages of?
I do like the idea that they do still talk about it. You know, you go to an ancient history museum and they talk about the old pumps of Texas and all this sort of stuff. And
yeah, our ancestors were so fucking stupid that they nearly destroyed our whole planet just so they could get from A to B. Thankfully, we came to our senses, but we keep these vehicles in this museum, never burning the actual fuel, of course, to remind ourselves of those dark days. Mate, do they have to break into the museum to get there's an old fuel canister in there that's behind the glass as part of the display?
Yeah, I kind of like the idea that there's in this ancient history museum, you find 4 perfectly preserved tires, and you find a canister of fuel, and it's the only fuel known throughout this world.
Yeah. Is this can this be an open world-ish sort of GTA style thing?
Yeah.
So you get to do a lot of driving?
Yeah. So I think what it is you are working for a collector. This collector wants a working car. Basically, he wants this last one. He's willing to pay you a lot of money for it.
Mm-hmm. What sort of car is it?
I know. I really want it to be, like, just something that we would consider really shitty.
Yeah.
Like a Datsun 120B or, like, some sort of horrible car that nowadays we go.
It's
"Oh my
it's
God,
one of
that's
those
horrible."
Volkswagens that like where they're faking the like fuel efficiency or whatever, or the catalyst or whatever it was. So it's actually like super bad for the environment.
Or it's a VW Beetle. So it's got,
yeah,
it's one of those typical sort of cars. Yeah, I like that. Basically, you sort of have to go through this cave when you break into it. It turns out that it's basically sort of like an old car museum or some sort of garage that has sort of been encased in rock through, centuries of like, well, replaced sand and all this sort of stuff through all the dust storms throughout the years that were caused by all the burning of the fossil fuels. Yeah.
Is this like the post world of our universe from last week with the space elevators and stuff?
Oh,
it's when they've actually resolved everything and
could be.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean, you probably want to be doing a fair bit of driving in this car then as the player. So we need to put some barriers to them actually getting it to the collector, or is that just the first step, and then the collector turns out to be some like crime baron?
Yeah, there's no reason why we can't be driving like regular maglev cars that just sort of, go around, and it's sort of like your first half of the game is reassembling this car and getting all the bits and pieces that you sort of through doing some of your other missions, you're sort of working out, you really need this money because such and such is sick and needs their medication, and the medication is not cheap, and all this sort of stuff. Pretty much showing that, this world, even though it's so green and all this sort of stuff, still has the same
They still haven't figured out universal healthcare.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the fact that they've got replicators, but the replicators can't replicate medications. Basically, they've been locked down so that the only thing that you're really paying for is healthcare.
So basically, we've still got a capitalist hellscape. It's just not haunted by climate change anymore. Just all of the other issues with capitalism.
Well, except for food. Food is free because you got the replicators. You can use them, and you pay a nominal fee, and that basically that gets you your service for the month. Well,
yeah, but if you have to pay for it, then if you don't have money, you're going to starve still.
Oh, but that's the thing. It's you work and you get this as part of your package for working.
But is there UBI? Because if you can't work for various reasons, or there's not enough jobs,
well, then all you get is the slop. It all works.
So they do have. There is free food for everyone. You won't starve. You just have to eat like the raw protein.
Exactly.
It's just vaguely formed into
it's
like
grey
a sausage
protein
shape.
And it tastes like grey.
Tastes like grey.
Yep. It's grey. That's what Tony the Tiger says. It's grey.
Thanks, Tony. I'm glad you're still in 300 years selling formless protein.
At least it's protein now. Like before, it was just sugar. He's stepped up.
Yeah, true. They don't put sugar in there. That's why everyone has
just a little bit. Just
reverse diabetes. I don't know. That makes sense.
Reverse diabetes.
All right.
Silent grey is people.
My next 3 words. Scan heartfelt feuds. So heartfelt feuds kind of grabbed me.
Yeah, I like that.
Because I like the idea of a very personal feud and exploring that narratively. Now, whether
so is this a family feud?
Could be a feud between families.
Yep.
To determine who which family is right, they've actually gone out and surveyed 100 people. So
it's actually continuous. It's continuous like surveys out there on the net. You know, whenever you go to like YouTube and you see a survey come up every now and again, if you fill that out, basically this is you filling in the survey for the game.
Is this a feud between two families of fucking influencers? And so social media influencers, and they are constantly surveying their followers to sort of prove that they are the better, you know, that they are on the right side of this feud.
Okay, you don't have to continue with this whole thing. You can go back to your original idea of heartfelt feuds.
Right, yep. So,
literally, dude, I was just joking.
One family is the Emders, and the other... All right. So, the other word I got was scan. So, I'm sort of wondering if there's some sort of...
Ooh.
Or do we even, like, bring in a sort of double entendre there with heartfelt, where it's something to do with someone's heart? Like, a heart problem or heart attack... And the scanning has something to do with, like...
Yeah.
With that.
I mean, when you said scan this time, my mind straight away went to the movie Scanners, where they've got, like, the mind powers and they like, have these mind battles and all this sort of stuff.
That could be cool, too.
And heartfelt is literally you feel the heart grow bigger and bigger and bigger and explode out of your chest.
So, I mean, I like narratively some of the stuff we've got. Let's sort of figure out, like, for a family, like, for really hitting home on that this is a feud between these families.
Ooh, okay. It's these two leaves of a family tree. So they've got, like, a single, like, patriarch, matriarch at the top. Yep. And there's two different leaves of the... or branches that are sort of one was of a daughter, so they've got a different surname. One was of a son. They've got the family name, but they're still within the same family. But basically, it's all come to a head that the matriarch, I'm thinking matriarch of the family, has had a scan, and you know, turns out everything isn't going so well, and so they're sort of brought back together, and it sort of ignites old rivalries. I'm thinking it's in like a rather distant future again, where people are actually living a lot longer. So the matriarch is actually like 150 years old.
Yeah,
you know, it's sort of like the great grandmother.
And then you've got like multiple generations, like two or three or four even generations here, who are coming to sort of. Yeah, get together for this. I like that. I'm getting, and this isn't directly related, I'm getting a very, like, Knives Out kind of vibe.
Oh, yes. I fucking love that film.
That sort of, like, tension and the family dynamics in there. And, you know, some people are really nasty to others. And, you know, some people have alliances even perhaps across the branches.
Yep.
You know, maybe there's some kissing cousins in there.
Oh, no doubt. There's going to be a Romeo and Juliet sort of group in there, and they're very low down.
Once you're that's it. Once you're 4 or 5 generations on, and on the, and
there's enough genetic
tree,
mingling in there,
fine.
like from other groups.
Absolutely. Okay, I like that. How do we play it out then? Is this? I almost like the idea of. Because obviously that's a lot of people, so we'd probably narrow it down to a smallish group of those who are the sort of the main characters.
Yeah,
I kind of like the idea of regularly coming back to a scene in like the sitting room or something, or like where things play out, things get discussed. You've maybe got dialogue puzzles or something. You've maybe got different things, and then it goes off. Like everybody sort of goes off for a while and does their different things, and then. I don't know whether it's then the next meal or something like, or everyone gets together. Because there's something I feel about sort of asking the questions of all the people at that time.
Okay, so what if it came back to, like, this family sort of dinner that happens? Grandmother is sitting there, and that's actually the matriarch. Like, this is this is pretty much when the family sort of separates. This dinner that they're at, and everything that goes down over this whole time is what ignites this feud. So basically, as you go back to it, you see it escalate a little bit further, and then it escalate a little bit further.
So you're thinking going back, like, each year or something, or each, like, over...
Well, what I'm thinking is that there is a single event that happened, and at the start of each chapter, you find out something new about that event.
Oh, I see.
So it's a singular event that that caused this fracture in the family. So
sort of a flashback to that event, and each chapter you get the next sort of section.
You get the next little section, and you also...
Or from a different perspective.
Yeah, from like... The first time you hear it is from, sort of your grandfather's perspective, who was the son of the great-grandmother, or something like that. So you hear it from his perspective, and then, as he befriends one of the other cousins on the other side, you find out the story from the other side, and then as it goes, you eventually find, a recording of what actually happened. It was like the simplest little disagreement.
Of course, it's some stupid misunderstanding.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that the whole game is essentially unraveling the source of this feud.
And it's
that's really cool.
Basically, the sister didn't want to pass the gravy or something like that, and it accidentally got spilled onto like the brother's wife's new dress, and it caused this huge thing.
Yeah,
but
and then
not malicious
the other
at all,
sister misheard gravy as crazy, and she's like got she got really offended by that, and raised the stakes a bit more. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I do like that. It's sort of a sequence of misunderstandings.
But the
it's essentially an episode of Frasier.
The story gets embellished over all this time. It's sort of like this massive fight breaks out, and there's cups and saucers being thrown all over the place.
Oh yeah, and I love that you see that played out in each person's perspective.
And they're all so very different. And then when finally, the great grandmother or whatever on a deathbed in her will, she's lived a really good life at 150 odd, and she finally says, "Here's the recording from the night," and it's just like the simplest little thing, and everyone goes, "Oh, that's what it's all about." And it's sort of like, it's not diffusing it.
That's what it's all about. It started with the hokey pokey, and you ended on that.
You put your cup and saucer in, you put your cup and saucer out, you throw it at your sister.
You pour the gravy on your wife, and you shake it all about. No, I like that a lot. I think that, essentially that in between each of those things, you're going around, like everyone's gotten together for the first time in decades, basically, because the grandmother's dying. But you as maybe like a younger member of the family, and you're just like, why are we in this feud? Like, why do we all hate each other? You're essentially sort of going around and investigating and talking to people, and then maybe bringing up evidence that you find to other people to sort of move the story forward and unlock another perspective, perhaps.
Okay, your character is in university.
Mm-hmm.
So got a little bit of, they're technically an adult, but they're still in school and all this sort of stuff. And one of their classmates also happens to be, you don't realize this at the start, but also happens to be like the cousin in your family. So you're actually related somewhat. Yeah. You're actually being friends at this university. And
it's not until this dinner is called or whatever that you
realize that you're actually related, because
that you're actually related.
And basically it's from there, you're friends with them, and you're trying to figure out all this stuff. And I think you can, like, hint at it a little bit, like, oh, you'd never believe my family, like...
Yeah.
And...
Yeah, you have a little bit playing out in the beginning, where you're flirting. Maybe we don't go full on that they're, like, together just to avoid some of that stuff.
It's all innocent.
Yeah, it's all innocent. They're getting to know each other, and they're sharing stuff about their family. And I don't know if it comes out then or until they, or maybe as part of that conversation, it's like, oh yeah, like everyone's getting together this weekend because my grandmother or my great great grandmother is finally on her deathbed, and they're just like,
Well, what I like is maybe they haven't heard about this yet. So they're just like, yeah, this is okay. And then when they get home, it's like, oh yeah,
they get a call during the conversation.
Well, no, it's sort of like they go back to their dorm, and that's when they get an email, and it's literally that impersonal that is like, oh yeah, can you make yourself available this weekend? We're doing some family stuff. They don't even tell you what it is, and then when you finally go, you realise that you're actually at the same thing. And
right, okay, yeah, that works. That works.
But then you can basically, the idea being that you can choose between the two characters, maybe, and you can flick back and forth between the two characters, and then you've got sort of like that whole.
You've got one on each side of the family, then who can kind of
investigate. And you basically decide that as far as you're concerned, this whole thing is stupid. You want to get to the bottom of it and basically try and meld this family back together.
I do like the idea of you having a family tree that you can switch to that gets filled out with like information and notes as you go around and investigate this stuff.
Return of the Obra Dinn style.
I don't think exactly that. I was thinking that when I said it, but no, I don't think, because we did that last week. Even though actually this is yet another like sort of setting that could work well with that. No, I think it's more just like as your note taking tool. Like I don't think you're like trying to figure out who everyone is because like they're your family. You know generally.
Well, you don't know the other side.
You know who. No, but
so you're basically you're trying to work out the other side without talking to your cousin.
But why wouldn't you? I don't think we need to go down that side. I think it's more just as you talk to someone, they do get their name and their picture and stuff on there. Like part of it is exploring that. Like it maybe starts as a blank family tree, but it's not that you're trying to like match them up and fill that out. It's more just as you talk to them, those relationships become clear to the player, and get filled out so that they can reference them back. Essentially,
that's really cool.
Yeah, and so because then you as you switch between the characters, you're filling out each side of the family tree, and as you manage to talk to everyone, you've sort of seen all these different perspectives and maybe presented evidence from one side to the other to have them realize that they were wrong about something or whatever, and then finally you get to talk to the great great grandmother, and she says how it all actually went down. Yeah, I like that. Hey Trevor, what 3 words?
Trio, tomorrow, recover.
Ooh. Trio works well from a game perspective because I just like there's a pretty classic thing of having 3 characters with perhaps different strengths and weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
Trio, tomorrow, recover.
Yes. I mean, my head keeps on going to like a dude, where's my car sort of situation, but I kind of like the idea of staying away from that as much as it lends to a lot of cool things.
Although, so
a 3-person dude, where's my car?
Well, I immediately thought of Day of the Tentacle, where you've got 3 people in different times working together.
Mm-hmm.
And a dude, where's my car sort of thing where you're trying to unravel it from before, during, and after the whole events could be interesting.
Oh, so one character is yesterday, one character is today, one character is tomorrow?
Well, maybe they're like, either they're the same character or some sort of time travel thing has happened and they're like trying to figure out across the time stream. I don't know. But it could be interesting actually switching between that same character in those different time spaces to, figure out a sequence of events, essentially.
Yeah, basically you can't quite work out, where you hid the key until you go back to today and then you see that, you thought, oh, I reckon the best place to hide this would actually be behind the bread bin. So then in tomorrow you can go, oh yeah, I hid it behind the bread bin. Here it is, right here. Like,
yeah. So you're essentially like setting up memories coming back to you in the future, or in either of the like tomorrow or today, by solving puzzles and doing things in yesterday or today.
Yeah.
For the future.
But then, things can somewhat go circular in the fact of, if you find something in tomorrow, there's a chance that you could also find it in the same place yesterday.
Well, I think you'd have to,
and it becomes that type of thing where you can change things in yesterday, and it's not actually affecting tomorrow as such. It affects today, but doesn't affect tomorrow, and then you can sort of like,
because there's a chance to reconcile that difference today.
Yeah, something like that. So I kind of like the idea of having that sort of feeling of, okay, so I kind of know that something's going down, so therefore I know I need to put this item back here for the person tomorrow, and you can have that as something that just automatically happens at sort of like the end of the story. That the today person basically puts things back.
I like the idea of playing with that. Like, I am thinking of this, and probably just because of the daily technical reference, but I'm thinking of it as a bit of a point and click.
Oh, yeah.
Because I do like that idea of, okay, I need to solve this puzzle tomorrow, but the only opportunity I've had to, like, deal with this item I need is yesterday, so I'm going to put it in this place, and it's going to be there tomorrow. But then you go to tomorrow and it's not there. It's like, oh, that's because there's some puzzle I need to solve, like some sequence of events today I haven't seen yet, essentially.
You can really...
That's actually going to...
kind of fuck around with everything that's going on. But I do like the idea that for some reason it's this... the character is actually the same in each of these time periods. That basically... his conscious is shifting between the 3 time periods, so he's actually aware of stuff that's going on.
Right, I wasn't sure if we were going to do that or just that it was sort of the player essentially solving this thing.
I do like the idea sometimes of, the player knows things that the character doesn't, but I think this would be a pretty cool idea to actually have it that the player themselves can sort of use some sort of mind power to flick back to yesterday, and then it's like...
Well, wait,
wow.
so then the player's an actual character as well?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about, like, the physical
ego,
person playing
ID,
the game.
id, whatever.
You mean, like, the main character?
The main character that you are playing is physically moving through...
Is moving their consciousness through those times.
Yep.
Yes. Do they... Is this that they wake up tomorrow... in that Dude Where's My Car style and realize they have this ability?
Well, and they go, the last 2 days were a blur. Like, the last thing I remember is, like, being hit by this radiation sort of thing.
Right.
And,
it's
it's like some sort of MacGuffin that you hit by. And effectively, you can only start to remember things when you see something on the fridge and it says, yesterday you were here. And you look into there, and then all of a sudden it teleports you back there.
And it shifts you back to that, and then,
And you go, hang on, I was just... What's the date? I was just over there. So you know now that this consciousness has been split, and they don't know things in tomorrow that you... Like, so you don't have that whole thing of course they'd remember what happened yesterday, and they...
No, yeah. Well, because they've lost that memory. But I think essentially then, as they start regaining stuff and playing through these different sections, then obviously they'd need to remember, like, so they essentially know, like, you'll play through a bit of tomorrow and then jump back to yesterday, then they know that those things are going to happen in 2 days, essentially. But so the issue there, I guess, comes from, we'd need to bring in things where it's like they can't make use of that knowledge, or they can't change things because of that knowledge, because it's still essentially meant to be a memory, right?
No, I'm thinking this is a quantum sort of event.
Okay, you're thinking they're actually, like, changing the timeline.
Yeah, effectively, everything that happens in this thing is for them to get through this time period, and it's kind of just a quantum event that's actually happened.
Okay, so it's not that they can't remember what happened in the last 2 days. It's that their consciousness has been like smeared over 3 days.
Yeah.
Something happened, and their consciousness on the quantum level got spread and smeared over these 3 days, and they're trying to make their way through it. And as a
so at first, you can only sort of travel between things when you see something that mentions
find some
like
connection,
a date and a time. So basically, you can travel to any of these sort of date and time sort of things. But then when you get to a certain stage in each of the days, you can actually at will change between your characters. And it's basically, I'm thinking it's everything that happens before midday.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's
You're
sort of like
semi-controlled.
You're semi-controlled by the system. But after midday, it's sort of like each time is just ticking over. And it's at predetermined periods, but basically as you go further, you know, you're sort of reaching the late afternoon, and then you're going.
And I think in that very classic adventure game puzzle tree way, that makes sense, where you essentially play through 3 relatively linear puzzle trees, 1 in each day, and then it opens up, and you've got a number of different puzzles that you can tackle in different orders that might interconnect in some way, and are present in each of the different time streams.
Yeah.
And then, probably like narrow that down again for a finale where they're all starting to merge. Maybe you get some weird merging stuff happening, where it's not just, you know, the past affecting the future, but things are existing in 2 places at once, or I don't know.
Yeah.
2 times at once or whatever.
But then, you know, I think what happens is as you read something, your eyes kind of glaze over and get like a bit of a glow to them. Because I think one of the final things that actually happens is, you know, you wake up on, you know, and it's 3 days later from, you know, a yesterday point of view. So you're outside of this 3 day period, you've woken up, but then you see something that's happening in 2 days' time. Or you see something that's happening in a month's time, and your eyes start to glow. And so it's sort of like,
so essentially you're like
everything is not quite over yet. This could actually, you know, you've got to be very careful.
Sequel?
Yeah, effectively. But, you know, it's then, you know, eyes start to glow and then it cuts to black, sort of thing.
Yeah. The sequel is set over 3 years.
I know, there's just something that rings true about having a character who is literally only knows what you, the player, knows.
What the player knows, yeah. But gets to work in those different time periods. No, I think that's a really great setup for an adventure game, and you could do some really cool stuff with characters because like while you obviously have control in these different time streams and might be able to change some of this stuff, like you see a character yesterday and you see a character today, and they're just like, I don't know, they've been completely beaten up, or like they're completely changed by tomorrow, or something, like different things. It's like, whoa, okay, what happened? And obviously through the course of the game, you either find it out or you cause it.
What I kind of like is you can then, you know, in tomorrow you see that your landlord is all beaten and bruised. But if you happen to try and interfere in the time stream and tell the person in yesterday, maybe, you know, it sort of goes into a somewhat white room sort of thing, saying that, you know, you've just broken the time stream. I'm going to give you a chance to not do this again.
Well, I think there's probably a neater way of doing that. I think what you need to do there maybe is you set up some mutually exclusive things where you make it clear that, yes, you can interfere with the landlord getting beaten up, but that literally means you can't get something that you will need to solve a puzzle. And so it's kind of... And you can show the results of it. Like, you stop them and you go to tomorrow and they're like, hey, like, thanks for helping me. Like, I'm going to give you free rent for the next 3 years. But you obviously make it clear through hints and stuff that, oh, shit, actually, I have to let him get beaten up, look like a coward, because I need to, like...
Oh, so because you've done that, now you need to actually beat the shit out of this guy.
No, I don't necessarily mean that you have to do it yourself.
Well, maybe, it's one of the only ways to actually get this thing to happen. So this is an extra puzzle that basically you're causing yourself by trying to stop this guy from being beaten up. you
Well, I
work
was more
yourself
thinking
down like a harder part.
I was more thinking that you have the opportunity to essentially like change your decision about things because you've got this power. So like, you see the landlord get beaten up. You've seen in the future that he's beaten up. You get to that point in the sort of in yesterday where that happens. You stop it from happening. You know, you jump forward to the future. You see that result, but you've realized that, oh shit, I actually need him to get beaten up so that the door's broken like today or something that's going to let me do something else. So you go back to before he got beaten up yesterday and this time let it happen, right? So it's that sort of thing where you're able to affect certain, and this would all be scripted, like it's all certain things. It's not I'm not talking that we have a whole systems based thing of events from the day before affecting. But yeah, I like that idea of certain sort of essentially mutually exclusive puzzles where to do the right thing, it means that you can't get further in the game. It's that you can't solve this thing and get back to a normal time stream.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it means the landlord thinks you're a dick because you sat there and watched it happen.
In fact, you were egging it on.
Yeah, totally. You get to like choose from different dialogue options to say while it's happening, and
duck.
Yeah.
Oh, you ducked into that one.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. All right,
let's quickly do one more.
One more, yeah.
Off you go, Ben. What 3 words?
Airports, effortless, computes.
Okay, are you a air traffic controller?
Yeah, maybe something around that, or maybe some sort of automation around air traffic.
Mm-hmm. I seem to remember that there were a few iOS games that were based around that, though. About
yeah,
when to
I know.
bring
I'm thinking there's like
when to bring planes in and all this sort of stuff.
Is this around helping people get through an airport? Computing where to put travelators and... Or you're trying to make it as difficult as possible.
You get more money if people have to buy more than one flight.
Yeah, you're trying to slow them down, make them miss their connections, make them go through as many shops as possible so they have to buy stuff.
Exit through the gift store.
Yeah, your gate is in gift store 3.
Oh, there's just something so wrong about that. It's like, and on your way out, make sure that you
All right, I think maybe we'll find a different one. All right, shrimp, undertaken, employing.
Ooh, okay.
So I kind of went with undertaken to an undertaker.
Yes, that's where my mind was going as well, but I'm not sure whether I'm going The Undertaker from the WWE or whether I'm going an Undertaker in the Wild Wild West.
I don't know anything about the WWE, so let's not do that. An Undertaker doesn't have to be the Wild Wild West, though, right?
Can just be a mortician.
A mortician, essentially,
yep.
Like funeral arrangements and such.
Oh my God, no! Don't go there. What were the 3 words again?
Shrimp.
Yep.
Undertaken.
Yep.
Employing.
Okay, so is this literally like a comedy of errors that occurs at like the buffet of a wake?
Okay, a bit of like Death at a Funeral sort of vibe.
Either Death at a Funeral or like 6 Feet Under sort of.
Yeah,
you know, it's the family black humor. And basically, you know, the shrimp is somewhat off, so you know that you got to try and keep people away from it. But there's other things that keep on going down that sort of...
is this a game where you're basically trying to prevent people from dying at this funeral, at this wake?
Yeah, I'm thinking that if you don't play it well, it becomes multiple deaths at a funeral.
Mm-hmm.
But then you got to think that's pretty good for the bottom line.
I feel like let's go with the former without the latter, maybe, just because that's maybe a bit too dark.
Okay, so maybe they wouldn't choose you, and it would actually, if they all died at your funeral, they wouldn't choose you to.
Yeah, I think it's just you're not going to get a good reputation from people dying at your funeral.
Yep.
Also, you just don't want people to die. Like, you're a nice guy.
Yes.
Or person. So are they just these, like, lemmings, like, wake goers wandering around that you're trying to, like, spin plates to prevent from...
I gotta like that you gotta position, Great Aunt Carol in this area leading up to the shrimp, because she just stops everyone and starts telling them long-winded stories, and you sort of you notice that, so you move her into the path. And
you know what this is? This is reverse Hitman. So it's that style of thing. You've got all the sort of different people around. You're wandering around as the funeral director, as the undertaker, around this wake, trying to help people out, and you can do things that then essentially make people shift their routine and shift their stuff. And so it's sort of you want to be able to do the best run you can, and you're only going to be able to do that by, like, triggering certain events, understanding where everyone is at different times. You're going to play through this level multiple times. Is
it kind of like a Groundhog Day sort of situation that you wake up every day and it's like, oh my god, same music comes on the thing.
Yeah. No, I love that, because literally the first day, just like 10 people die at this funeral, and you're just like standing there with no way to do anything about it, because it's just all happening too quickly, as all these things cascade and these people die around you. And then, you wake up again the next day and you're like, oh, shit, okay. Uncle Johnny got drunk and fell off the top of the stairs at the landing, so that's the first thing I'm going to tackle.
Oh, I'm thinking that the first time, obviously, you don't know that that's going to happen, and you walk into work, and they're setting up for the funeral the same way that it was the day before, and you're sort of like, okay, I've got another chance at this.
Oh, I like that idea that you've sort of got a setup section before guests get there, and then you've got the sort of moments during the actual funeral where you can do things like redirect Great Aunt Janice to a certain person. Yep. To a certain person, because you know that she's going to tell long-winded stories and hold them up.
So I love the idea that you find out, okay, the shrimp is bad. So you fix the freezer that obviously it was broken, and therefore it was just about to shut off, and it's like in the morning, or it turns out that wasn't actually the problem. It was the fact that the intern actually took out the shrimp and put it out on the bench, like at 10 o'clock in the morning, and it was still out at 3 o'clock when the wake was. So it fully defrosted and got too warm and all this sort of stuff. So then when you work that out, then you can spend time of, okay, get the intern to not take it out yet. But then there's other things that actually can then occur that actually cause this thing to happen.
I think to make it not too
repetitive,
frustrating and repetitive, that you'd need maybe certain choices that you essentially can tick on or off once you've done them once.
Yep.
As long as there aren't like mutually exclusive or whatever, like other things that affect them. But essentially you can go, okay, today I'm going to tick, 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 and then you can jump to particular points in the day or something. Because essentially you're just trying to puzzle this out to do the sequence of events.
Yep.
Maybe you have to do, or maybe there's just an achievement for doing a like real-time run. After you've sort of figured out all the different things that you need to do in a day, there's an achievement for actually going through and doing them all and remembering them all.
Basically, if you do it all in one run, which I think you can only do from like the second run or so. But even then,
I mean, whatever, you let the speedrunners jump into the very first one, and if they've just played the game before, then they can make it all go well. But you have to remember like 47 different choices or something that have to happen at particular times.
Yeah. Otherwise, Great Aunt Janice, she's standing over underneath like a big moose head, and the moose head during the earthquake, happens to shake off and impale her.
During the earthquake. Yeah, exactly. Whereas, when you've redirected her and battened down the hatches and put all the glasses away, then the earthquake just becomes a funny story they tell about how the Lord didn't want cousin Frank to die, and so he sent an earthquake during his wake.
I'm just wondering whether, like, when you get through this whole thing and you go into the next day, whether you think that it's the next day and you wake up and it's like, even though everyone survived, like, it's still repeating the day again.
You're just like, oh fuck. I just had to meet the woman of my dreams. That was actually the whole thing.
No, that's really cool. I think
cool.
That does bring us to the end of tonight, though.
That does definitely bring us to the end of this episode. So thank you for joining us this week on Bitstorm. If you want to find us online, go to podchaser.com/Bitstorm. Check out all of our previous episodes. Leave us a review. You can leave us a whole podcast review, or you can go to this specific episode page and leave a review for tonight. Tell us what you thought and what maybe you thought we could have done differently.
So for the last 220 episodes, Kuradust has given us the wonderful use of one of their songs. We didn't originally use Meant to Find, so I just remembered. We actually used a different one when we started. That's interesting. I'm trying to remember what song it was. I think it was Heavy Space.
Hypnotica? Oh,
Hypnotica was Two Sorry Dads. So
that's true, yeah.
I think we used Heavy Space for like the first 5 episodes. That's lots of fun. I would like to thank Kuradust now for allowing us to use Mount Defiance off of the album Containment Failure. We gracefully gave ourselves permission.
Yeah, that's our bad. Yeah. I love how you do that every week. It's like, oh, thanks, Kuradust. So thank you again for joining us this week on Bitstorm. I'm Ben Slinger.
I'm Trevor Scott.
And I'm going to huff and puff and take you home.